Jointe à la séance. Bienvenue à la réunion numéro 62 du comité permanent des comptes publics de la Chambre des communes. Conformément à l'article 108.3G du règlement, le comité se réunit aujourd'hui dans le cadre de son étude sur le budget principal des dépenses de 2023-24. Are you getting translation? Let's just hold it. Je vais continuer quand même. Crédit 1 sur la rubrique. No. Mr. Clerk, I'm told the translation is not functioning. Okay, thank you. Just pause for a second, everyone. Excuse me. Yeah, we're in suspension. I'm just holding for a second. Nous sommes prêts à commencer. Again, welcome to the 62nd meeting of the Public Accounts Committee, House Commons Public Accounts Committee. Conformément à l'article 108.3G du règlement, le comité se réunit aujourd'hui dans le cadre de son étude.
Pursuant to Standing Order 79.3, the Speaker read the following message from Her Excellency Governor General. We are meeting to meet public accounts, and we're going to meet people from the Auditor General.
From all our witnesses. From the Office of the Auditor General, Karen Hogan, Auditor General, nice to have you with us again. Andrew Hayes as well, nice to see you, sir. Deputy Auditor General and the Auditor General, respectively. Paul-Annie Pierre, bonjour, nice to have you with us. The Assistant Auditor General, and Vicky Clement, Acting Assistant Auditor General and Chief Financial Officer. Ms. Hogan, you have the floor for 5 minutes, and then we'll go to questions from the members. Over to you, please.
Monsieur le Président, c'est avec plaisir que
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
des travaux de notre bureau, notamment.
We are pleased to speak about the latest departmental results. I would like to acknowledge the fact that today we are meeting on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. The Office of the Auditor General of Canada serves Canada through leadership and partnership in audits that support trust in public institutions and continued public service excellence. We do this by providing Parliament territorial legislatures with independent and objective information, advice, and assurance about government financial statements and the management of government programs. The Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development assists me by conducting reviews and audits according to his areas of expertise. We also support the development of legislative audit methodology and accounting and auditing standards, and we contribute to improving public sector auditing internationally.
Our accomplishments in 2021-22 as presented in our departmental results report. We provided this report to Parliament in December 2022. Of significance in 2021-22, my office dealt with a long and difficult strike. As shown in our financial statements, our net operating cost was $126.1 million, and we employed the equivalent of 727 full-time employees. With these resources, we reported on 12 performance audits and 3 special examinations of Crown corporations. In addition to some performance audit reports, the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development delivered the annual report on environmental petitions, the review of departmental progress in implementing sustainable development strategies, and a report on lessons learned from Canada's record on climate change. In addition, we launched our update on past audits. This interactive dashboard provides a snapshot of the progress that selected departments and agencies have made in areas we previously audited. You can find it on our website. We also audited the financial statements of 90 federal and territorial government organizations and Crown corporations, including those of the Public Accounts of Canada. We issued clean opinions on 86 of these financial statements. And finally, we also presented our annual commentary on our financial audit work. Dans notre rapport sur les
In our departmental results report, you will find indicators of the impact of our work. The level of parliamentary engagement with our performance audit reports is one of these. Overall, parliamentary committees reviewed 80% of our reports in 2021-2022, up from 61% in the previous year. There were 34 committee appearances focusing on the work of our office. I want to thank the Standing Committee on Public Accounts for reviewing all of the performance audits that we referred to it during the last year, as well as 2 reports of the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development. During the year, we also continued to review and renew how and where we work. For examples, we launched modernization efforts and started laying the groundwork for our transition to a hybrid workplace, including converting some of our existing office space to follow a hoteling model. I would now like to turn to the main estimates and departmental plan for the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year. In this plan, we introduce our updated departmental results framework. This framework provides revised departmental results and the indicators we will use to measure our progress in delivering these results.
$122.6 million for the 2023-24 fiscal year. With these resources, we plan to employ the equivalent of 765 full-time employees. During this period, we plan to issue 89 financial audits, 6 special examinations, and 25 performance audits. This includes the audits that Parliament has requested on the government's ArriveCAN application and on the use of contracts for professional services. We will also deliver all other reports that are required annually in the Environment and Sustainable Development portfolio. In addition, we will also be working on several large initiatives that are already underway in our office. They include our transformation journey and adapting our workspaces and systems. Managers have been back in the workplace for at least 37.5 hours each month since January of 2023, and other employees will return as of June 1st. Enhancing the value of our audits and better understanding stakeholder needs remains a priority for us. Mr. Chair, I could not be prouder of everyone in my office. My colleagues are engaged and motivated to make a difference for Canadians. We thank the committee for its ongoing support and use of our work, and we would be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know members are anxious to ask questions. I'll begin with Mr. McCauley. You have the floor for 6 minutes, please.
Thanks, Chair. Welcome back, everyone. I just put you on notice that as you did not say "Go Oilers, go," I will be putting through a motion to defund your department entirely. I'm going to, there's very little in the estimates, one line, so I'm not going to bother with the anything from the estimates page. I just want to go through, if you don't mind, your departmental plan. I'm just going to flip through and ask questions as I go, if you don't mind. Starting off with the hybrid work, can you explain what your department is doing? I think Treasury Board has stated minimum of 2 days or 3 days back. Is that in effect right now with your department?
So that requirement for the Treasury Board applies to the core public service. We are not part of the core as an independent agent of Parliament. So we can follow the spirit. We were asked to follow the spirit of that return to office. Back in 2021, we had already announced to our employees, well before the public service had made its announcement, that we would be bringing everybody back into the workplace for a minimum of 37.5 hours a month. That we wanted teams to do it with a meaningful intention. So not to come in and sit on MS Teams, but to come in to work collaboratively because we valued that face-to-face interaction as a culture. So we rolled that out as of January this year.
Averaging right now for in-place work?
So right now we have only our management team in. We were delaying the return of all of our employees as we were trying to modernize our workspaces, but unfortunately with supply chain issues, converting our offices to be more conducive to hoteling and a hybrid workforce has been delayed. So we decided to just bring everybody back in June. On average, everyone is doing their minimum and then some, because some of our auditors are out at audit entities much longer than that in a
Are you
given
able
month.
to measure your productivity?
So we measure our productivity even pre-pandemic. We measure how many hours it takes to deliver certain audits, and we always challenge auditors to be more effective and efficient at their audits. And then internally, we do track things like sick leave and milestones of key projects in order to see productivity on that front. The rest of the productivity you see as we deliver audits to you, which involve communications, contracting, desktop, so on.
How is it affecting productivity? Is it just the same? Is it increased, decreased? Too early to say?
It's like coming back into the workplace, do you mean? How is it?
Right now, with people are still working at home, not in the office, how is the productivity compared to pre-pandemic?
So I think I'll ask Andrew if he wants to add a little bit more, but we definitely saw a dip at the beginning of the pandemic. We saw inefficiencies, but gains in efficiencies because we weren't traveling, but inefficiencies because of delays in getting information from audit entities. But I think you might have some more to add to that, Andrew.
I might just add that as other organizations are also still facing a hybrid working environment where some people are not in, it does take longer, as Karen mentioned, to get information. If you imagine that a face-to-face discussion about the information that we need could resolve an issue a lot faster than a back and forth of emails. Likewise, as our financial auditors are working with other organizations and may not be seeing people face-to-face as often as they would have before, some of our audits take a little bit longer to do.
Okay. Page 5 under core responsibility plan results and resources, and this is not a criticism. Like the last line, you talk about by building on a culture that emphasizes respect, well-being, inclusivity, and continual growth, you expect to increase employee engagement. Why isn't competency in there as a focus?
Why isn't, I mean, I think our that might have been just an oversight. Obviously, our workforce is incredibly competent. We have professionals all across the organization, whether they hold professional designations or be professionals in HR
is a
and
fine answer.
communication.
An oversight is a fine answer. Next page, when you talk about OAG Flex, this gets back to the hybrid model. You're saying 37.5 hours a month. Was any of that changed by the finally settling the work or the contract issues that had been outgoing, or is any of this affected by current negotiations?
So
I
not
realize you don't follow the Treasury Board, but
So not at all, but we do keep a really close eye on what the Corps is doing. So while we've adopted a motto of coming in a minimum of 37 and a half hours, what we're doing is we've implemented a hybrid work policy saying that should cover the majority of people. If you want a permanent telework or have a different arrangement, then you get a telework arrangement instead of ensuring that every employee has a telework arrangement. So we'll watch what goes on in the Corps to see what changes might be made, and we try to adopt the main principles of Treasury Board. So, for example, the kinds of rules that Treasury Board has to give permanent work telework.
Because I just want to get one last question on this round. Page 7, UN Agenda for Sustainable Development. You say you're committed to aligning your audit work to support this agenda. Why? Is this a direction from the government? Is this a personal objective?
It's a personal objective that the office adopted a while ago, and it's in line with the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development's mandate. We believe that we should walk the talk and ensure that we hold every audit entity to adopting sustainable development strategies, as we will do so within our own organization. So it really is something that we wanted to do.
And that is your time, Mr. McCauley. Oh, was there another comment?
I
Go ahead, please.
If I can just make a 10-second comment, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals were committed to by Canada in 2015. So they contain goals, targets, and measures that we use as criteria to hold government to account.
And thank you. Mr. Fragaskatos, you have the floor for 6 minutes as well, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all of you for being here again today. Auditor General, last year you spoke about the international work of your office. I just wondered if you could expand on that in terms of relationships that your office has with similar offices, particularly in emerging democracies, but anything you wanted to add to that as well.
Well, I'll let my colleagues think about whether they want to jump in, but so we are the independent external auditor for 2 international organizations. It was UNESCO and Interpol. UNESCO and Interpol in the year under question. So we do that work, but we do a lot of engagement sort of in the INTASI front on sustainable development goals. We also welcome international fellows into our office in order to encourage and develop performance audit capacities in international organizations. And then we do spend a lot of time actually just collaborating with the auditors general across the country at the provincial level, and I've started to engage with some at the municipal level so that we can share best practices and support each other across the country.
Thank you very much. Staying with the international focus, how do you measure outcomes in terms of the engagement and whether or not it is producing the expected results that you're hoping for?
So I think I might turn to Palani to add how we intend to do that more consistently in the future. I think admittedly we probably didn't measure outcomes as well as we should have in the past few years, but we would measure it on, exactly what I accuse some departments on, of the outputs that we do, right? Speaking engagements or fellows that we might welcome, or committees that we may participate on INTASI, but our intention is to be a little more focused and actually measure our outcomes in a better way. Palani, did you want to add anything?
Yes, sure. So part of the new suite of indicators that we are introducing at the program level, we will have indicators that will seek to get feedback from those different partners and even entities also and members of this committee also. To assess to what extent we bring value, to what extent our work is useful, and to what extent it supports reporting or accountability responsibilities. So you will see those in the new departmental results framework to be reported in 2 years, I think so. Yeah.
I wanted to shift focus, if I could, to hiring and maybe challenges that exist in hiring, although I do see that there's been about 150 employees added during the pandemic, which is significant, I think. But I often hear this from different departments, for example, where there's competition with the private sector, right? The Deloittes of the world, to use just one example, have the ability to pay quite well. And so does the Canadian Public Service, obviously. But there is that competition factor there. Do you have any comments, Auditor General, on the nature of that challenge, whether it is a real challenge, and if it is, does it stand in the way of your ability as an office to continue to maintain a sizable workforce so that you can continue to do the work that you do?
I think there's a lot of elements that play into our ability to attract and retain the skilled professional resources that we need. I think on any given year, normal attrition sees us needing to hire about 100 individuals across the organization. That ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's a little higher than that. So while we did hire many during the pandemic, we also received additional funding, and the intention was to ramp up and increase our workforce. I could talk a little bit about the profession, and then I would like to talk about the impact that the strike had on our organization. So I would say from the accounting profession in general, given a significant amount of our workforce is made up of CPAs and financial auditors, the accounting profession is just seeing a decline in people going into accounting, and then more importantly, going into the auditing field of accounting. You can get your CPA now in so many varied ways, and that is just a reality that AG offices across the country and accounting firms are facing. That being said, we also hire so many diverse other professions. We have lawyers, engineers, economists, and so there's always an issue on that front. We struggled a lot in the area of professionals in communications, and then some professionals linked to public service matters, so HR professionals and procurement professionals. So all of our support services were really on strike. So if we play back to the impact of the strike, we had about 170 people who were out on the picket line. By the time everyone returned after we had a deal, and about a month later, we saw that of those 170, about 35 or so had left the organization for various reasons. We then saw a sharp increase in sick leave. And we were hard hit in our procurement office for sure, procurement, HR, and comms for sure. I can give you, for example, we wanted to have 14 procurement officers in order to support our modernization efforts. About a month after the strike, we were down to 3. And then we have to restaff all of that. So it just causes so much delays in our ability to advance projects, but then the need to hire. And then we saw a sharp decline, about 2/3 of a loss in our HR capacity, which really just grinded hiring to a halt. So I think there's many factors that play into the difficulty in properly resourcing an organization.
And thank you. That is all the time. Maintenant, Madame Sinclair Desgagnés, vous avez la parole pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Madam Sinclair, you have 10 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming here. I'm happy to see your lovely faces for a more standard kind of reunion or meeting. My first question is related to the fact that because of the strike, you were able to produce a smaller number of reports. In a normal year, what is the percentage that's, if you can evaluate, the percentage given to public accounts, to performance audits, and then importantly, performance audits? We know that there are already audited by external auditors in a large proportion of cases. So if you could give us that breakdown, it would help me understand. So you think that this is a standard meeting for me? For me, it's actually not a standard because I'm answering all the questions rather than the department. So in a normal year, I would say that 2/3 of our auditors are financial auditors, and it's a lot of work. So around 260 employees are on the financial side for federal and territorial audits. On the performance side, we have about 170 auditors, So was it 2/3? Maybe someone can figure out what proportion 170 is out of 800. It's about 20%. Are for performance audits. You spoke about Crown Corporation audits. We are the external auditor for most of the main Crown corporations. Sometimes we are working jointly with an external firm, and sometimes it's just us. So for the main, the headquarters, we do it mostly. So how many audits can you give in a standard year? Financial audits. So before we had the funding increase, we had about 14 performance audits, including the 3 in the territories. We tried to do 1 performance audit by territory, so 11 federally and 3 territorial. So our goal is to have 25 usually. That would include 3 territorial ones, so 22 for the federal side, as well as all the annual reports that the Commissioner, Environment and Sustainable Development has to provide. So with the strike, how many performance audits did you carry out? So are you carrying 21, 22, or this year? Yes, 22, 23. So just a minute. I often get confused when we're speaking about many years. I think we're up to 23 this year, but we also have to say that the C2 related audits of the COVID programs, that was huge. And I think that was an audit of 6 programs, so that figure could be increased. So in terms of Crown corporations, this year, well, for the 21-22, had relatively few audits for Crown corporations, knowing that they're not included in public accounts. And as you mentioned, sometimes you are the external auditor doing it jointly, but you're saying if it's the headquarters that you don't look at it, but you can come in for the performance audits, but it is limited to that. Our mandate for Crown corporations is limited. We do annual funding of almost all the parent companies. So there's the Bank of Canada, and it's CPPIB. PSB, no, not BSB. No, the Canada. And why don't you do audits there? Financial audits? Well, that's a question you should ask the people who wrote the Act. We weren't mentioned in the Act for these 2 company organisms. So we do that every year. And then we have a mandate related to special examinations. Under the Act, we have to do 1 every 10 years in parent Crown companies. We try and complete 3 to 5 special examinations a year. But in terms of our mandate for performance audits, it's a little complicated. Usually we can include a Crown corporation if it manages a program for the government. But the Auditor General Act is a little less clear in terms of special examinations for Crown corporations. Perfect. I'll come back to that at my next turn. I have 20 seconds left, 24. So I would like it if you could begin to name where you think that the Act might be amended so that you could broaden your scope or perhaps improve it. So I'll let you think about that until my next turn. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I too want to thank the witnesses for being present here, especially the Auditor General on such an important day for us, being able to ask you about your future plans, but in more particular aspect, it's been, I think, something I've been personally, but also on behalf of Canadians, very interested in terms of your experience with the strike. And so, of course, we've seen unprecedented action this last year in terms of workers demanding respect and trying to understand the issues pertaining to each unit. You know, when I first arrived in Parliament, it was a matter of disagreement between us. The fact that our Auditor General's office was going on strike. You know, I met many of the workers, you know, nearly 160 of them I met. And many of them talked about the terrible working conditions, the culture, the issues of pay, going to food banks. These were workers that were under your charge. Why was it that when we brought you in to speak about these issues, and then we even brought in members of the Treasury Board, that we were unable to answer the question was who was accountable and who was making the decisions? This is a decision that I think during that time, I asked you the question directly whether or not you could end the strike, and you responded with no, that you could not, and that it was a mandate of Treasury that had to give you an ability to do this. And then when we asked Treasury Board that same question, they said, no, it's the direct employer. And so I'm a bit confused, and I think Canadians are confused as well. Who did this in many ways in terms of who wasn't at the table, who's accountable, and why did the workers feel as though they were forced to go on strike?
So in my mind, responsibility and accountability was always very clear. The Auditor General Act makes me accountable and responsible for setting the terms and conditions of all employees unless they are represented by a bargaining agent. When they are represented by a bargaining agent, it becomes the Treasury Board Secretariat. So it was very clear to me that I was negotiating within the mandate given to my office by Parliament. So we did have a team of negotiators, but we have to follow, and I think I explained this to the committee before, we have to stay within the financial envelope or fence that is given from Treasury Board.
On the envelope, and I think this is the most interesting aspect, I think Canadians want to see transparency and some light onto how the strike actually happened. And in terms of your example, one of the earliest in this Parliament, can help with this. And so I really do appreciate your answers here on this respect. And so this envelope, it's my understanding this envelope is established largely by Treasury Board through a global mandate and binds several bargaining agents and several bargaining tables, including yours. Do you have any ability to advocate for yourself as an employer and with Treasury Board to understand the circumstances that arose with the strike? And were you able to actually have your voice heard to prevent such a strike?
So I was able to speak to Treasury Board, but I could not change the envelope, the mandate that is given to us. So you are correct, it is a financial mandate that is given by Treasury Board to bargaining agents. It's based on a percentage, I believe, of the salary of the employee group, but I could not make that larger. If I had brought forward a deal that went outside of that, it would still require the government to approve it, and we believe that it would not get approved. We were clearly told that we needed to stay within the envelope provided. Did you want to? I don't know if you want to add, Andrew, any particularities or?
Sure.
Yeah, I might add a few things. So we wrote to the committee in December 2021 to inform the committee about some of the challenges that we faced in terms of collective bargaining and that particular strike, which had only just begun. When we had the hearing here, and I forget the date, but it was earlier this year, we had central agency representatives here, and the Associate Deputy Minister of Finance provided some clarity on this, stating exactly where the mandate came from. And I believe he even mentioned that it comes directly from the Prime Minister. I could be wrong on that, but I'm sure that the blues for that will show what was said. For us, ultimately, there's a degree of control that we have over certain aspects of the contracting in terms of terms and conditions within our own organization.
Sorry, just to speak more directly in the statement you made in relation to the Prime Minister and their mandate. So you're saying the Prime Minister is directly related to the issuing of the mandate?
I'm saying that that's what the Associate Deputy Minister of Finance said when he was here with us at that hearing earlier this year, which was important for us because we had been trying to get the message across to our employees throughout the strike that we were constrained by the mandate given to us by the Centre. I should say, though, there were examples in legislation historically where, say, for example, the Canada Revenue Agency had an ability to set their own collective bargaining mandate, and that had been removed from legislation. So ultimately...
So largely the government changed the environment for these collective bargaining agents, and in effect, Was it, we know that there's examples outside of this global mandate, but you're citing one, the CRA, for example. But back to that comment you made in relation to the Prime Minister. Can you just repeat the words of the ADM again?
So it was the Associate Deputy Minister of Finance at this committee who said that he confirmed that we did not have the authority to set the mandate, but that it's done centrally, including with the involvement of the Prime Minister. That was the Associate Deputy Minister. So
the Prime Minister put the workers on strike?
I can't say that. All I can say is what the Associate Deputy Minister of Finance said.
I think what might be important to say, when our employees went out on strike, about, I think it was 90.
Right? Like, I'm trying to figure out who is
Sir,
responsible.
Mr. Deschanel, your time is up. If the
understand.
auditor would like to answer, as you know, I like to get
Yeah.
here answers, so I'm cutting you off, not her. But if you have a few last comments, Ms.
Thank you,
Hogan,
Mr.
please.
Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. The majority of the public service had already negotiated and settled agreements within the mandate. And there was a very small percentage of bargaining agents that had not yet, and we were one of those. I think there was a handful, actually, when negotiations started for our organization. So everyone else across the public service had settled within that mandate, and that's why we were told we had to remain within that mandate.
Thank you. I have no doubt we'll come back to this line of questioning. Mr. Desjardins. Mr. Cram, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. I would like to follow up on the OAG's return to work policies and work from home policies. Ms. Hogan, I believe you said that the employees in the Office of the Auditor General are working in the office at least 37 and a half hours per month. Is that what I heard, correct?
That is correct. We adopted a hybrid policy back in 2021. We informed our employees and gave them time to sort of get all their personal affairs in line. The intention is to come in a minimum of that in a month. That could include going to an audit entity or coming into the office to collaborate and innovate with your teams. But the whole point is to do it purposefully and not just come in on a consistent day. It's to come in and do something with your team, collaborate and increase our culture and actually bring back a sense of camaraderie across the organization that you lose by sitting across a TV screen from each other.
Now, in recent weeks and months, we've seen a push to bring back other federal government employees to working more and more in the office. As we have more and more federal government employees returning to work in person, are we going to see the Office of the Auditor General's employees mirror that return to work as well?
So we aren't following the minimum 2 to 3 days per week, but if more public servants are downtown or in office buildings and we are auditing them, chances are we will be there more often as well. So we really are driven by the clients that we serve, but there are some times that you can be really efficient from home as well. So we're giving our staff that flexibility.
Okay, I would like to turn to some of the audits that you have planned for the upcoming year. I see that you have 4 audits planned for the territorial governments. I will admit I wasn't aware that your office audited the territorial governments. Could you elaborate a bit on what you have in store for the audits of the territories?
Absolutely. So my office is also the Auditor General for the 3 territories, which means that we audit the public accounts of each territory as well as all the territorial corporations across the 3 territories. And then we try to provide at least 1 performance audit a year. This year we have 2 in 1 territory, but it was very, very well informed. It was a very well informed decision made with the legislature there. So our intention is to table vaccine reports in both the Yukon and Nunavut. We thought that was a good continuation off the federal vaccine audit, that we would then be able to see the actual rollout to shots in arms across 2 territories to help inform any future mass inoculation responses that might be needed to future pandemics. We have an audit in Nunavut on child and family services. It's the 3rd time that we're going in to look at that department in Nunavut. And we will also have an audit that was requested by the legislature in Northwest Territories on the Stanton Territorial Hospital Renewal Project.
And do the territorial governments have their own public accounts committees that will be reviewing your audits, or will that be done by this committee here?
No, I report to those three legislatures and table my work in their legislature, and they hold hearings similar to your hearings, although sometimes they last a full day and sometimes 2 days on one report, but it is very similar there, so it's not the federal Public Accounts Committee that studies that work.
Okay, very good. I read that 80% of the reports that were presented to Parliament in the 2021-22 fiscal year were reviewed by parliamentary committees, and 100% of the ones tabled to this Public Accounts Committee were reviewed. Can you give us an idea of what audits and reports you produce that are reviewed by other committees besides Public Accounts?
So the work of the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development is referred to the Environmental Committee. They don't regularly study all of his reports the way that the Public Accounts Committee would study the reports that are issued under my banner. But as you know, the Commissioner's work is really work out of my office. He does that work on my behalf, and this committee has, I'm very happy to see, studied some of his work. So that kind of report would not be studied by anyone. Some of the information under the Net Zero Act as well, some of the extra mandates that the Commissioner has are just referred to, again, the Environmental Committee, and they may not study them, but other committees in the House and in the Senate are studying our work. So I'm really happy to see the increase in committees looking at the work of our office.
And thank you, Mr. Cram. That is your time. Turning now to Ms. Yip. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Often the focus of the OAG is on audits and reports, and I'd just like to highlight and thank you for your work on developing the legislative audit methodology, the accounting and audit standards, as well as contributing to public sector auditing internationally. We don't think of you always in that role. And I think that's important, especially since we have such a strong public accounts tradition here, foundation as well. My first question to you is, you remarked that one of the ways you assess the impact of your performance audit work is through the level of parliamentary engagement with your reports. There's been certainly a lot of work done. How would you recommend that we keep that momentum going?
That's a good question. I could go on for a while, I think, with that answer. But I guess I would like to talk a little bit about maybe standard setting, both domestically and internationally, since you mentioned some of that. Many members of my office actually sit on standard setting boards, as do I. I think it's important to give back to standard setting and to encourage more accountable governments. And we're seeing a lot of activity right now around sustainability reporting, and many from within my office are playing an important role in trying to ensure that happens. When it comes to engagement, I mean, this committee is studying all of the reports that I provide, making their way through them when they might not get to all of them at the time they are issued, which is a great first step. I'm very happy to see other committees doing it as well. But I think it's then the continued focus, the follow-up from the committee's reports and the committee's recommendations, and making sure that you follow on to previous Public Accounts Committee's recommendations and not forget about those, because I think it's that sustained focus on holding departments accountable, which will hopefully drive change. And in fact, this committee has done that a few times, bringing back departments to talk about the actions they've taken months after they were here for the first time. So that's a huge way, I think, of ensuring that we continue to stay focused on outcomes. And the only other thing I would say is that we have, as I mentioned in my opening statements, started an online interactive database where we follow up on past audits and past measures. So looking at that, using that to follow up with departments could also help inform some of the questions that this committee or other committees might be able to ask.
Well, I think that would certainly inform Canadians across the country on the work that you do, and as well as our work in the committee, that follow-up is so important. and they can see that just because the report ends, there's still more work to be done. So I'm glad that that's there. Do you have any statistics on the number of Canadians that access your website? Because you do such good work, I just want to make sure that Canadians know about the website and where to find information and how government is held to account.
So we do track, I guess, visits to our website. We do track the reposting or so on of posts about our audit work on social media. I don't have that handy. I'm looking. I don't think we expected that one. So we didn't come with that. If you're interested in those kinds of statistics, we're more than happy to provide them to the committee. But we're definitely seeing an increase as we're turning more to data visualization. So we see a lot more time spent on the charts or the infographics that we develop with our work than someone reading the long form report. So I think it depends, the focus and the use of a Canadian as they access our website.
See those statistics if you have them. I also find the infographics and the report at a glance very helpful. Are there any reports that you believe that are particularly important that have not been reviewed but tabled?
Well, I guess most recently, I would say the rural connectivity report is one that I think is important, that it would be great to see the committee study at some point in time. Because it is an important commitment, as we saw throughout the pandemic, in order to ensure that people can engage in the digital economy or access healthcare or schooling online. They need good, strong, stable, reliable, and affordable internet access. And so many living in rural and remote communities, including Indigenous communities, just don't have access to that. So I would really like to see the committee study that report in particular. But as I say, I'm always pleased if you study all of them, but if you had to pick, that would be one I would like to see studied.
I'd like to just follow up. I seem to recall there was a comment on diversity at the management level at the OAG. Has that improved?
So we have made a lot of strides across the organization in meeting our employment equity targets. We see those really as the minimum expectation, and we strive to exceed them. We have made improvements in our Indigenous representation, but we still have a lot of work left to be done in management. We're making improvements, but until you have a population of almost 5 in a visible minority category, you don't get to talk about it in a public way. But we haven't lost focus on making that an improvement across the organization.
And thank you. That is the time. Encore une fois, Madame Sinclair-Desgagnés.
Once again, Mrs. Sinclair-Desgagnés. So as soon as you've had a drink of water, so I don't know if I'll be able to have it all in French, but if we had the opportunity to open the Auditor General Act, I think I would have 4 main points that I'd like to mention. One is access to information, to make sure that it's very clear that we do have access to privileged information. I think with the language, we think we have it, and we still believe that we have access to all privileged information. We don't have any entities who are pushing us into that field, but I think from time to time there's a bit of difficulty and resistance, so it would be important to have that stated very clearly in our Act on access to information. So the second thing would be an independent funding mechanism to ensure that our office doesn't need to ask a department that's being audited for our annual budget. So once we've received the money, I still have the goal of continuing to ask for independent funding. There are other officers of government that have a mechanism that's independent of the government, but we don't have that. The third thing would be to improve and broaden our mandate, actually to clarify our mandate in terms of Crown corporations. So more flexibility in the mandate for special examinations, that be broaden, so for all performance audits, not just special exams, and also the last thing would be several small things. I would like the language to be gender neutral. I am the feminine Auditor General, Vérificatrice Générale, but my office is the Office of the Auditor General in the masculine sense, and the Act also. So it's not gender neutral. So I think it's important that the language be gender neutral. And also I would like to specify that our reports are submitted to both houses. Now, they must be filed in the House of Commons and they're referred to the Senate, but I think they should be filed in both houses. The reports of the Commissioner for the Environment and Sustainable Development is filed in both houses, but that has evolved, but the text for the Auditor General has not been modernized. So those are the four most important things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to know, in the theme of trying to find best practices moving forward from this strike, we've talked about accountability in the first discussion, my first round of questioning, and now I want to just be forward-looking in some ways in order to prevent such an event from happening again. We don't want to see a national strike where workers have to demand fair wages, basic respect, dignity. It doesn't bode well for Canadians. You spoke about the impact to the Auditor General's office, and it's very clear that those impacts were present right across the board for many weeks when we had the national strike. And so to understand how we're going to move forward in this in a good way, I recognize that your departmental plan makes commitments to this, and I think it's largely because of the events of the strike. You speak directly to the priority areas being care, connect, and modernize. What does that mean, and who are you speaking to when you say care, connect, and modernize?
Well, there's many parties. So our care pillar is really around our staff internally. So ensuring that we have a skilled, engaged, bilingual workforce, that it is a safe place to work, that they feel that they can raise their concerns, that they feel included and respected for the work that they do. That's definitely something that we heard loud and clear following the return from the strike. The Connect pillar is really internal and external. So it's across our organization to break down silos so that we don't just work individually, but that we really work with the global outlook of the organization as a whole, but also to connect with our stakeholders and the individuals that we audit. So parliamentarians, senators, Canadians, the departments, and so on. So to really create a collaborative working relationship with everyone that we interact with. And modernize really impacts both internal and external again. So we need to modernize our own internal functions so that we can be more efficient, but we also want to modernize how we communicate and report on our results. You're seeing some of that already, but I think that we have a long way to go so that we can really make Canadians aware of the work of the office and see it as an employer of choice across the country.
And do you think, in just terms of some of the issues that were more relevant to Indigenous and particularly Black civil servants? We've seen, speaking directly with many of them, that there's an existing lawsuit against the federal government for discrimination based on these two populations. In your department itself, how are you tackling discrimination and racism within your own department?
So we have made similar commitments to the clerk's call to action. While we weren't required, we felt it was really important to do so. And we have lots of actions in place that we're working on, and I think we have to continue to work on. So increasing our diversity across our management is definitely a step that we need to take. We've done a lot of training and awareness across the organization on Indigenous matters, on unconscious bias, on equity and diversity. By putting a focus as well in all of our performance audits, we've actually increased capacity within our organization, and now we have almost every audit team consulting our equity, diversity, and inclusion team before they embark on any audit, whether it be a special exam or a performance audit. So we're really trying to incorporate it into our work so that we can even push it through the public service. I mean, I think we have lots of initiatives, and I provided a letter to the committee a while back with all of our commitments. I'm happy to recirculate it if you would like.
And thank you very much. That is your time. Mr. Genuis, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Auditor General, for being here at a time when this Liberal government is drowning in scandal. Parliament has come to you a number of times asking that audits be done on specific issues. And I know you've told us in the past that you set priorities, and then when Parliament asks for those audits, that can be in addition to that. We have the request from Parliament for the audit into ArriveCan, the fact that tens of millions of dollars were spent developing an app that didn't work, a request to look into the McKinsey scandal as well. So I wonder if you could update us on the status of those two investigations and what impact it has on your resources when Parliament requests these additional audits, if you require additional resources from Parliament, just in light of the volume of concerns that are emerging about this government's behaviour and the corresponding requests from Parliament that we're seeing.
So I do believe it's a cornerstone of the independence of my office to be able to pick who we audit and when we audit and what we audit. That being said, we recognize that Parliament is our main principal stakeholder, and we take seriously the requests that we receive from Parliament. The ones that you're talking about when it comes to ArriveCan, to give you an update, so we don't talk about audits while they're underway. We believe that it's important to share that information with Parliament all at once. What I can tell you is our intention is to release the ArriveCan audit in the fall of this year, and the audit for professional services contracts in the spring of the following year. What we did in order to put those in, because as you said, we had a work plan underway, we did delay an audit in order to be able to get ArriveCan in quickly. We haven't canceled it, we've just pushed it out a little bit. So it's the larger one on professional services contracts, we're actually still trying to gather a lot of information, so our hope is that it will be spring of the following year. But gathering information from the Crowns is a little more difficult than it is gathering it from all of the departments. So I don't believe that we need more funding. We just needed to adjust our work plan to allow for those two requests.
Okay, and just for everyone's peace of mind here, we're in a minority parliament. In the event that there's an early election, what is the impact on the possible release of the ArriveCan app or audit or the McKinsey audit? Could the government call an early election and thus force the delay of a release of one of these reports, or would they be released as scheduled regardless?
So we are only able to release a report to Parliament when it is sitting. If it's been dissolved or prorogued, we don't have a vehicle to table reports. We encountered that issue in 2011 when there was an election in 2011. The way that we deliver reports is to the Speaker, who has to table them afterwards. Okay.
Down the government in 2011. So if you didn't want an election then, you could have voted for the budget. On the Trudeau Foundation issue as well, I know there was some discussion about bringing a recommendation to your office on that. The feedback we got was just around some of the limitations and the mandate. My understanding is that the legislation specifically recognizing that the Trudeau Foundation is not just a private charity, it is a public institution, that you can audit the Trudeau Foundation, but that the particular scope of what was proposed was outside of the work of your audit, of your office. Could you share a bit about the kinds of things you could or couldn't audit theoretically in terms of the work of the Trudeau Foundation?
I'll invite you if you want to add in, Andrew. So the mandate was added to our act called the Follow the Dollar mandate, which was meant to follow when there is a funding agreement between the federal government and a private organization. And so we would be able to go look at that funding agreement. In this case, it's an endowment agreement linked, and we would be able to see whether the terms and conditions of that agreement were followed and respected. It doesn't allow us to look at other donors or private donations and the sources of those funds or the intentions of those donors. And so all the questions that we were being asked to go look at were outside of the scope that we have the mandate to go in and look at.
Thank you. And just jumping back to the previous question, I think people will be watching with great interest issues of prorogation about whether the government engineers and this, you don't have to respond to this, I know this is more political, but from our perspective, if you have a report coming on the ArriveCan app on contracts with McKinsey, and then we see a premature prorogation or the government engineering a dissolution, I think it will be interesting for Canadians to note that taking place.
Thank you, Mr. Juniors. I would note that any prorogation would not halt the work of the Auditor General, and those reports would come after the subsequent election and the new Parliament was convened. Ms. Bradford, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Auditor General and staff, for coming to speak to the operation of your office. So it's very important that this committee have that opportunity to question you on that. So further to Mr. Genuis's line of questioning, it has become more common to demand that your office conduct a specific review or result as opposed to a request, which has been the normal course of action. Are you concerned about this trend and how it might perhaps affect the independence of your office?
So no matter the language of the request, I still hold the right to refuse to do an audit. When I can't do it is when it's obviously put into legislation as the work that was included in Bill C2. That's a matter of law, and I will comply and follow with the law. I always take seriously requests that committees make. And I think there's different weights. You know, sometimes we were already going to look at a topic and we might have advanced the work that we intended to do. We take seriously when our stakeholder has an interest in something, and we try to adjust our work plan when we can. But I absolutely believe that being able to decide when and what we audit is very important. And at times we will say no, and at times we will say yes.
Thank you for that clarification. So that now that you've had time to bring on board these 150 new hires and get them trained up, have you seen an improvement in the speed and volume of reports that you're able to produce?
I have to admit that I'm always incredibly impressed with the individuals in our communications and desktop publishing, how they take audit speak and make it non-audit speak, and how easy our reports are to follow and read and the graphics. What we're seeing is an increased capacity to deliver on audits. And now we're working very hard on making sure that our support services that are so essential to getting the audit past the goalposts are ramped up. And as I mentioned, over the past year, we have been trying very hard to increase our capacity and are not always successful with some of our staffing processes. So we are seeing our ability there impeded a little, but our goal is to hit 25 performance audits in the year that just ended and in the coming year. So I think that's where we meant to be. So we're achieving that target, but we can always be better and more efficient.
So last year there were recommendations from this committee and the Parliamentary Budget Officer to require the tabling of public accounts earlier in the year. What constraints are there on your ability to meet an earlier deadline?
Well, I always agree that financial information is important when it's timely, and so the faster that financial statements can be issued is important. There's a balance between the ability to make sure that they remain accurate and the speed that is needed. So our challenge really relates to getting information from the federal government. There's a lot of work that goes around revenues with the Canada Revenue Agency. There's a lot of work around liabilities and estimates with some key departments. And so to move up the publication of the Public Accounts of Canada would require collaboration between ourselves, the Receiver General, and the Controller General's office. But it would also have to mean that timelines would have to be changed across the federal public service. The current timelines are very tight. And so if you wanted to have the statements out earlier, you can't just take time away from the audit, right? Everybody has to share in the moving faster and advancing deadlines.
So do you believe that including additional details from Crown corporations could cause the public accounts to make it more difficult to meet an earlier deadline?
I guess it depends the amount of work that is needed, and it's a question that I think really the Controller General would be better placed in answering. We audit most of the parent crowns, and so probably already audit some of the information that is likely being requested by Parliament to make it into the public accounts, because a lot of that information is already available in the individual financial statements of the crowns.
And this past year, you did audit a couple of Crown corporations, did you?
So we do the annual financial audit of almost all parent Crown corporations except for a few. So the few that we mentioned were the ones we did not do.
Okay. Do I have any more time left?
About 10 seconds, so you're
Okay,
very,
that's
very
good.
near the
Thank
end. Thank you. Mr. McCauley, you have the floor for 5, please.
Thanks very much. AJ, I just want to get back to something that's in your departmental plan and also shows in the DRR. Like from page 5 of the departmental plan, our core responsibility, and talks about legislative auditing, which makes sense. But the 4th paragraph down, it goes, there's a comment, over the last 2 years, we've also incorporated the assessment of equity, diversity, and inclusion as a priority area for our performance audits. Where's that direction coming from? Like making,
as we mentioned earlier, the Sustainable Development Goals are a commitment that the government signed on to, and so we are including that in every audit. The GBA Plus analysis is one that the government requires our departments to use, so we've included that.
Right, but this specific comment about the EDI, like, was it the government itself saying, AG, please put this in as one of your priorities?
No, not at all.
Or is this your personal choice to put this in? Like, I'm trying to figure out where this direction comes from, because the AG, when I look at it, it's about, legislative auditing. It's about math. It's not this as much. So I'm just trying to figure out where this direction came from, this specific direction.
So what I would argue our audits are about a lot more than just math, but point taken,
You know what I mean?
we do
Simplifying
love
it.
numbers.
I only have 5 minutes.
So I would say that we look at the mandate letters and the clerk's call to action, and many of the mandate letters and the call to action really were requiring so many departments to take certain actions, and we felt the best way we could see whether they were meeting those commitments was to incorporate EDI into our performance audits.
We, you mean we as in your executive team, we as in yourself?
Yes, my executive team and myself.
Okay. Just continuing with the, into the DRR, page 8, you've got the workplace of the future. You mentioned earlier there was you hired an independent analyst to look at your workplace of the future. Is this the result of it? Or where's the data or the push that has developed this workplace of the future?
I know, so that page 8 is actually a pictogram that we use to talk to our employees about the transition back from working remotely to a hybrid workforce and how we would get to our workplace of the future. The independent consultant that we used was really focused more on culture and a sense of inclusivity and belonging, and it's that it was an individual.
McKinsey.
No, it was not. It was an individual that came from Health Canada.
Okay. And how did you decide, or how did the office decide on a back to work plan that's very different from the rest of the public service? Like, do you have data that backs up that 37 hours, which is about maybe a day and a bit a week, is going to increase productivity, is going to get the work done at a better level than 2 or 3 days a week?
So it was a decision that I made with my executive committee back in 2021. As I mentioned, we were about 1.5 years ahead of the federal public service. We felt that it was because of the loss of the loss of a culture and the loss of a sense of belonging. And when you do audits, it's important at times to look at the people that you audit, to be there in the room, to appreciate nonverbal.
Get that, but your return to work is significantly below what the Treasury Board guidelines are. So I'm trying to figure out how you.
So our expectation is below. But the reality is many are coming in just as often, if not more. As I mentioned, if they're going to an audit entity, the entity might welcome them onto their premises for 2-3 weeks out of a month. And our auditors and management will be there. The next month they'll be in again at the workplace. So it's meant for two things. It's meant to make audits more efficient, but to also create a culture and a sense of belonging that would also drive, hopefully, creativity and innovation. While we see some of that with the virtual nature of our work, it is just so much sparked better in person. And we think that some training, the value of some training is better in person than it is virtually with everyone with their cameras off. So we do think that face-to-face at times just makes more sense.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shanahan, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I, too, would like to thank the Auditor General for being here with her team. This is such an important meeting for us to be able to reflect on the work of the Office of the Auditor General. And what's most important to me is the continuity of that work. I mean, we don't often think, Canadians, we kind of take it for granted, first of all, that our public accounts, have we ever had a commentary on the public accounts? In other words, that they were anything less than a clean audit?
So no, there's always been a clean opinion issued to date on the Public Accounts of Canada. We do have commentary and opportunities for improvement, however, that we issue in our financial commentary, some long-standing issues around the management of inventory at the Department of National Defense. Since the Phoenix pay system and the change to the whole payroll processing, we've had an important commentary there. But over the years, we've had other commentaries around estimating tax revenues, around applying new accounting standards for environmental liabilities, and the government's acted on those. So there is always an opportunity to improve the financial statements, but the opinion has been clean so far. I cannot comment on this year. We're in the middle of the audit.
Continues, and in fact, it leads me to reflect on the evolution of the work of the Auditor General, because we have gone from just making sure that the numbers all add up to being able to look at the work to what's behind the numbers, and hence the performance audits. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times that your objective is 25 performance audits per year. Has that always been the objective of the department? You referred something to this being even prior to the numbers that we have in front of us.
So if you go back, I believe, into Sheila Fraser's mandate, that was about the volume that the office used to issue. Obviously, not every audit's created equally. Some are smaller and some are larger, but around that sort of ballpark in a given year. Then there was a call to reduce budgets across the whole government, and the office voluntarily did that. Then new mandates were added that were not funded, and we saw the performance audit work fall to about 14 in a given year. And when I requested additional funding, as Michael Ferguson had started to do back in 2017, it was with the intention of bringing our volume back up to about 25 performance audits a year. I guess I would just caution counting the reports. As I say, Bill C2 is one, but it was very large. A report can be quite small. So I think it's just a benchmark and a target. You know, as long as it ebbs around that, is probably a good amount of volume. And then it's what parliamentary committees can study. The capacity you have to study all of that work has to be considered as well.
I think that this committee certainly is looking forward to studying many more performance reports, especially because it allows us to question department officials and to get to that better place where objectives are better met. Would you give us some insight into how the Office of the Auditor General decides what and who to where to perform those performance audits? What goes into that thinking?
It's quite an extensive process, and it is constantly turning. So it's not like it stops and it starts, but it sort of has an end. We develop a work plan, and then we just start up again and keep going. It really does need to be a flexible work plan because the world around us is constantly changing. So it starts with a great in-depth analysis on the departments, on portfolios. We speak with senior officials, deputy ministers, and so on across the federal public service. We had conversations with this committee and other parliamentary committees and with senators on areas that might be of interest to you so that we can put them into the mix. We then look for sort of external feedback. We have a panel of senior advisors. We have a place on our website where Canadians can suggest topics to us. We bring together a group of audits, a suggested group of audits, and then we bring a cross-functional team across the entire organization to review them and go through them and challenge them. So we're hoping that we represent an average group of Canadians and what Canadians might want to hear and care about. And so we challenge audits there. Sometimes that results in new audits being suggested or scope of audits being adjusted. And then we have our work plan for a couple of years. And then we can look at mandate letters that come out and see what's in those and whether we should realign some of our priorities. And then we consider environmental factors as everything continues to change before we embark on a new round of audits in a given year. But we always have audits being started, audits mid-course, and audits at the reporting stage at any given point in time.
And that is the time. Thank you very much. Maintenant encore, Madame Saint-Clair-Desgagnés, vous avez la parole.
Ms. Saint-Clair-Desgagnés, you have 2 minutes. Thank you, Chair. So in the actually there seem to be 5 requests because the last one was the report to both houses. Yes, that was kind of Varia, the 4th one. So there were 2 things that were very relevant and very interesting because one thing that concerns me is the issue of crowns. I think that with the money that they receive, it's a public fund, taxpayers' funds, they're audited and their performance is audited. That's great. And it would be good to have more. And especially I question the fact, and I would like it, that crowns be included in the public accounts reports as departments are. I think that would be normal given that they receive taxpayer money and that their level of audit be as great. So I think it's an issue of transparency when we talk about departments having the duty to declare that people in the businesses that receive funds, which isn't the case for Crown corporations. So I think there's a major problem there. We've already made a recommendation in the public accounts report last year. I'm waiting to see what the answer will be from the Treasury Board, but they continue to push back the date of their response. And the other point was also brought up by my colleague here. I think that the last saga on the Trudeau Foundation and the discussion you had with my chief, Mr. Yves-François Marchelet, concerning the extent of what you're able to do has highlighted a potential issue. So when the government works with a private foundation or a private business, what you can do is quite limited. So I understand that you couldn't do that, the audit that was requested. And I think that comes into the first point that you mentioned, access to information. Why not include all those who receive government monies in potential audits? A performance audit might look at the use that certain private actors made of these funds, of these public funds. So I'd like to hear you say a bit more about that. So Andrew can add if he wishes to. So I think the mandate to follow the dollar is exactly what you're talking about. It gives us the opportunity to go and verify whether the funds, after an agreement, an endowment agreement with the government, is used as requested or required by the contract. Is it necessary to audit all the other activities of a private organization? I would say no. I think the intention is to make sure that the taxpayer funds were used as they were meant to be used. Sorry, Ms. Sinclair Desgagnés, your time is up. Now,
You have the floor for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to conclude the last aspect, when we just last spoke about your departmental plan, you mentioned that last portion, which was in direct relevance to the employees, the care component. And so this care component, rising out of this really historic event, I think, in terms of the difficulty between the Treasury Board and your bargaining group and able to actually get to a deal forcing these workers there. Is your commitment to better work in terms of that connect piece with other ministries, including the Treasury Board, to actually see that the issues you're presenting here today are matters of relevance for them to consider, especially given the fact that we need to have, I think, almost like a post-mortem analysis of how something so critical was able to take place?
I will ask Andrew to jump in, and I think that I guess I just want to be clear that throughout this labor dispute, we spoke almost daily with the Treasury Board. It wasn't for lack
What were they
of
telling you?
engagement or exchange with them. It was helping us understand the mandate and that everyone else who had negotiated had settled within that mandate, and how could we find a resolution staying within that mandate.
But you yourself recognize that being the very end of the mandate. You recognize that in the statements earlier today. You said that there was a few outstanding bargaining tables, but there wasn't many, but it included your unit. Did you recognize and did you request of the Treasury Board in those many discussions the fact that these were at the very end, considering that there was a new mandate that was just being approached to be negotiated, how unfair the workers might perceive that given the cost of living crisis?
The answer to that is yes, and indeed that's how our collective agreement was ultimately finalized. It covers a year further than what we were first looking at. I want to come back to a point that you made, which I think is very, very important. What did we learn from this strike? It was the first strike that we ever had as an organization. It hadn't happened in the public service for a very long time. So for us, it was learning all the time. What we would have done differently, definitely, would have been to enhance the communications with our employees all the way throughout the strike. We know that our employees were facing difficult situations. Some of them didn't understand where the role of the employer and the role of the union goes. So we would have wanted to, if we had a do-over, that would have been what we would have definitely done better. In terms of the relationship with central agencies, we have to work with them for the best interests of our employees as well, and we are keeping those lines of communication open all the time. We had made commitments in our collective agreement to engage with studies of our classification and job positions and that sort of thing. We're doing that. We've started that with the union already. There's a joint committee, and we're going to need to engage with the central agencies to be able to sort out what we can do at the end of that analysis. So we have to keep the relationship strong.
And thank you. That is the time. Mr. Cram, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to circle back to this performance dashboard that your office has up and running now. Can you give us some background about whose decision it was to come up with this dashboard? Was it mandated by government? Was it all an in-house decision? I'd be very curious.
So it was a decision of Michael Ferguson to start following up in a more formal way on results in audits, and not really on the recommendations, but more on results and focusing on outcomes. This initiative started with him It sort of paused a little when he passed away, but I committed to pick it up and make sure that we moved it forward, especially when I was seeing that so many of the first reports I tabled had long-standing issues that had not been addressed. So we needed to try a different way to ensure that entities were staying focused on the commitments that they had made.
My next question. Like we've seen, for example, with the report on emergency management in First Nations communities, some of those recommendations, they're very similar to the ones from a decade ago, and they just never seem to get acted upon. So I'd be curious to know, with this dashboard, how far back in history are you going? Like, can your average Canadian see that these recommendations just seem to sit there for years and years and years sometimes?
So it's my understanding when we started, we went back 3 years, and now we're adding all of the work, not all of it, but a good chunk of the work that we're doing. We're actually being selective on, do we want to put certain reports in or save them for a full follow-up audit, or just have them be in the update on past audits. But we only went back 3 years, as you can imagine. It's not a self-declaration. So departments aren't saying, yes, we've met it. We're going in and doing some work to kick the tires and see what's going on. So we have a dedicated team that stays focused on that year-round in order to be able to update this.
As you're well aware, this committee spent a considerable amount of time these last few weeks dealing with the vaccine contracts, which certainly had a great deal of confidentiality issues and redacted parts of the contract and that sort of thing. So how will this public dashboard for Canadians handle issues of sensitivity and issues of confidentiality, as we've seen with the vaccine contracts, for example?
So, I mean, we won't be able to talk about things that are confidential and shouldn't be discussed in the public forum, but our intention is to definitely follow up on pandemic preparedness work. That was one of the issues that we found at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, was that recommendations and commitments coming out of H1N1 and SARS had not been acted on. And I think that forgetting in between emergencies that you need to invest and take care of certain things is not a hiccup I'd like to see the country do again. So we are going to follow up on many of the recommendations we had about pandemic preparedness and being better ready next time. Do you want to add something, Andrew? Yeah.
If I can add, I would say that we also encountered a similar issue with our cybersecurity report, where we had to hold back some information, but we were intentionally transparent in that report about a recommendation that we made to the department, so that we could follow up and be transparent with this committee about our follow-up and include information about whether or not action had been taken in response. So we are going to find ways to I guess, identify whether action has been taken on our recommendations and results have improved for Canadians.
And what was the cost of the performance dashboard?
I don't have numbers about that, but comparatively to doing a full follow-up report, it would be a lot less.
Okay, if we could get an actual dollar figure provided to the committee in writing, I would appreciate that. We also heard a few weeks ago from the Treasury Board about their strategy to move more and more IT systems to the cloud. Is this performance dashboard one of the systems that was done on the cloud, or was it done in-house?
So it was done in-house, I do believe. We developed it. We are taking a cloud smart approach. So as we are modernizing our systems, we're ensuring that they are cloud compatible. And we will move some of our systems to the cloud. And it's part of our sort of modernization journey to figure out what goes where and making sure that we can safeguard and always protect the information that's entrusted to us.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fragaskatos, you have the floor for the last 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to turn back to the issue of employees, and it is a nuts and bolts question, if I can put it that way, Auditor General. But how does your office engage in recruitment? How do you find the best and brightest? Because as we've seen, your reports are instrumental in helping to shape certainly this Works Committee, but overall lessons learned for parliamentarians on what government can continue to try to do better?
I mean, like every employer in the federal public service, we post all of our job openings across many platforms. We are very active in university recruitment, especially on the CPA front, and I'm trying to increase that in other fields because we do need other expertise. We tap into the Black Employee Network. We try to tap into certain networks within the federal public service as well, if we can draw individuals from existing pools or look for certain matters there. We're engaged in a program with CPA Canada for Indigenous individuals. I'm trying to think of what it's called, the Martin Mentorship Program, I believe is the actual word. So we are trying very creative ways. Word of mouth is always a great way to recruit. I find that even after I release reports or I speak at a speaking engagement, there's an increased interest in our organization, and we are not turning away any excited individual who might like to join us, and we're trying to really tap into as much diversity across the entire country. We saw that benefit throughout the pandemic, and we're trying to maintain that presence as much as we can to tap into skill sets that we normally wouldn't have tapped into because we don't have an office in every province across the country.
Thank you very much. Let me go back. I want to turn to the international again. There's some who say that when countries in the industrialized north or the west, if I use whatever term you want, when they seek to forge partnerships with countries in the developing world to share best practices, there's an imposition of values that happens there that is detrimental to the well-being and to the interests of countries in the global south. I appreciate the work that you're doing, but what do you make of this argument? Is it something that that impacts you, that impacts your work? Any thoughts on that? I'm thinking about arguments that say, when the West comes in and tells countries that in many ways are still emerging in terms of their democracy how they should do things, that it amounts to a new form of colonialism. Again, I don't agree with that argument. I think that your office should have relations with countries in the global south, but I think it's an argument that does need to be grappled with. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
So I guess I would say when we are involved internationally, we're not imposing our ways at all. It is really a learning opportunity. We see it with a lot of the fellows that we've welcomed over the years in the organization. They just want to learn about our tools, the way we operate, and they share what they do in their offices as well. I think what we get to really talk about a lot is transparency and accountability. Those are hugely important in Canada and are really at the forefront of a lot of decisions, and we talk about what that means. There are some countries that don't have public accounts committees like this that study the AG's work. We talk about the independence of the office and how that's important not only to the profession but to the mandate and ensuring that there's balance in work. So we just talk about what's amazing and great about Canada and our office, and it's up to other entities to decide if they want to adopt those.
All right, well, that will give me time for a brief question then. Hi, Auditor. With respect to access, does your interpretation of the Auditor General's Act and the Canada Evidence Act provide you with sufficient access? For example, do you have access to the documents covered by solicitor-client privilege? I'm looking for an answer in the context of Ontario's AG and the Laurentian University decision that was recently rendered by the courts.
So I'll start, and I think Andrew might join in here. I must admit I'm not sure I know the reference to the Evidence Act, but I will talk about the AG Act. In my view, the AG Act gives us access to all the information that we need to do our audit in a timely way. You referenced the AG Ontario. So the language in the Ontario Act was deemed to have not been as clear as it could have been when it came to solicitor-client privilege. Up until now, we have always had an agreement with all the entities we audit that we will maintain and protect the solicitor-client privilege of information that is shared with us. It's not a waiver by giving us that information, but it's information that we need to do our audit. The language in our Act is not as clear as it could be, which is why it is one of the items on the list of things that I think would be our wish list should our Act be amended. Andrew, would you like to add anything?
Thank you. So I would add that the reference to the Canada Evidence Act, that's important. On a distinction level, solicitor-client privilege information is what we are tackling right now in terms of access. The Canada Evidence Act, as it relates to cabinet confidences, we had sorted that out with the help of this committee in, I think it was 2017, 2018. So we haven't had a problem with cabinet confidences at all since then. Solicitor-client privilege information is very important to us because when you think about the public accounts, for example, there can be very large contingent liabilities that we need to see information about that is often contained in solicitor-client privilege, legal opinions, that sort of thing. In terms of the Ontario Court of Appeals decision and the Ontario AG's case against Laurentian University, there's a very big distinguishing factor, which is related to the structure of the AG in Ontario versus in here at the federal level. In the federal context, we are a department under the Financial Administration Act. We contract in the name of the Crown, and ultimately it's our position that if a legal opinion was provided by a department to us, it's still covered by the Crown. So there's no disclosure of privilege. That's our position. Very different in the Ontario context, where the Ontario AG is a real clear officer of Parliament, not a department of the Crown in Ontario. Ultimately, we are going to have back and forths with the government about this. We've had, I would say, we use the word earlier, resistance at times. We will see that happen again, probably in light of this Ontario Court of Appeal decision. We will work our way through that. But it would be really helpful, as Karen has mentioned, to have the engagement of this committee to help us sort out what will be a clear access provision in our Act.
Thank you. And if you need to come back to us about any of this, please do so. The committee is always eager to hear from the Auditor General and her entire team. So thank you very, very much. I'm just going to turn to a matter of votes before I excuse the witnesses and gavel the meeting to a close. So I'm just going to ask the committee members, shall vote 1, and these are in your notes from the committee team, less the amount of $3,377,433.33 granted in the interim supply carry. I see affirmations, which is what I'm hoping for. Thank you very much. And vote number 2, shall I report vote 1 under the Office of the Auditor General of Canada to the House of Commons? Yes. Thank you very much, committee members. I thank the witnesses, the auditor from the Office of the Auditor General for being here today. And my little slip en français was not pre-planned with the auditor for her to reinforce her point, but it's well taken. Thank you very much. I'll now adjourn this meeting, and we'll move into a subcommittee meeting in camera once that is set up. Thank you.